Wow. Wow. You know, in California, they're probably snickering a little bit, but for shocked East Coasters, more than a few even now are panicking. Earthquakes are not supposed to happen on their side of the country. They do, of course, and today at 1:55 p.m. Eastern Time, one did. A surprisingly big one, 5.8 on the Richter scale, jolting but not exactly crippling. And for an eastern seaboard more focused on a hurricane offshore, the shock of the ground giving way, if ever so briefly, about 30 seconds beneath their feet. For once, it was the great unifier, unnerving Democrat and Republican alike, and relegating Dominique Strauss-Kahn's victorious day in court to a hastily disrupted district attorney's press conference in New York.
Has protected. Okay.
I hate when that happens. Anyway, buildings evacuated, air travel stopped, whole cell phone networks all but shut down. Only weeks ahead of a very big anniversary, an almost eerie 9/11 feel, especially in New York, and especially in Washington, and in Virginia, and in Boston, up and down the East Coast, a reminder of what so many take maybe a nervous stride along the West Coast. But this time, with the nervous gnawing feeling, it might not be over. To D.C. and Shannon Bream, forced out on the streets by this quake. Shannon, what's the latest there?
Well, Neil, you know that we are on heightened alert around here leading into 9/11. Folks are very sensitive to anything that feels like a jolt, anything out of the normal. And that's what happened today. Buildings were swaying. They were evacuated very quickly. Fire alarms, Capitol Hill, folks flooding out. In fact, we just heard from Capitol Police. Still, all of those buildings are closed other than police headquarters over there. They've got the architect of the Capitol inspecting the buildings. It's going to take a while before they let anyone go back in. And an interesting side note here, you know, right now the Senate is operating in a pro forma session, meaning, you know, they couldn't agree how to shut things down, Democrats, Republicans in the Senate, before they broke for August. And so there is an ongoing session where somebody has to gavel it in and gavel it out every few weeks, every few days, actually. And today was one of those days they were set to do it. So they moved the entire process to the United States Postal Museum, had some tables set up in there, had enough people to go in and gavel in the Senate, technically get that session going and gavel it back out. So Washington is just learning a new way of doing things today. There's a lot of traffic gridlock, a bit of panic because it's something that we're prepared for a lot of things around here, but this is not something you anticipate as a Washingtonian, Neil.
All right, well, you survived it, kiddo. Thank you very much. Shannon Bream, to a seismologist now, says today's developments, despite what you are hearing, are a big deal. And the fact that they have it on the East Coast makes them a really big deal. With me now, Dr. Keith Coppert. So, Doctor, unusual as it is, that's what makes it noteworthy. Explain.
Well, that's right. In the eastern U.S., there's not a plate boundary. So most people in the U.S., when you think about earthquakes, you think about California or maybe Alaska. And the reason that there's so many earthquakes there is because you have two of these big tectonic plates that are sort of rubbing against one another. But on the East Coast, it's a passive margin, that's what we call it, and there's no big boundary between tectonic plates, and so it is unexpected to have largish earthquakes.